This is Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Welcome to Community Close-Up. I'm your host, Sharen Skelly, and today I have some very special guests, and we're going to be talking about Black History Month, and in particular, the celebration of Black History Month through the eyes of some of our ancestors. And how we're going to do that is we're going to visit virtually some of our museums, local museums and archives. And with us today, we have Jill Paterson, and Jill is the manager of Museum and Archives at Grey Roots Museum and Archives. Welcome, Jill.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And we also have with us Carolynn Wilson and Sylvia Wilson, and they are the owners and the directors or the archivists, I believe, of the museum, Sheffield Park Black History and Cultural Museum. And that museum is in Clarksburg, Ontario. It's not that far away from Owen Sound. So welcome, Carolynn and Sylvia.
Thank you. Nice to be here. We're happy to be here.
Oh, we're happy to have you. We had some technical difficulties, so you're sort of just pictures on a screen, but if people go to visit you, they'll get to see you in person.
That's right. Thank you.
So we're going to start by saying, or I'm going to start by saying that, you know, February is Black History Month, but we really should be celebrating Black history, Black art, and reading, you know, Black literature throughout the year. We should be educating ourselves about our rich Black history, both locally, provincially, and throughout our country. We should be doing that year round. So we do have February as a jumping off point, but, you know, really we should be doing it all the time. So starting with Jill, I know that right now we're experiencing what we call a lockdown. I'm not sure how that looks at Grey Roots, but do you have any way that you can we can experience Black History Month at Grey Roots, even though we can't be the way we usually are, going in and looking and touching things and reading?
Yeah, absolutely. Usually we would be, holding, public events and promoting our exhibits and trying to get people together. But right now we're celebrating Black History Month through our social media and by doing virtual events like this. And trying to share some of our archival images and objects on our Facebook feeds and Instagram and that kind of thing. So we're kind of doing our best to keep sharing the stories, but you're right, it's a little different than what we would usually be doing.
So what are some of the things that you're doing? Specifically, what are you doing?
We will be, so just over the summer when there was that real movement for Black equality, we refreshed some of our Black history in Grey County pages and tried to pull together some anti-racism resources. So we'll be pushing that out as well, and trying to share that throughout the month. But and just trying to bring forward the treasures in our collection that reflect the long-standing history of the Black community in this area, just to try to make sure that awareness is shared.
Well, we do have a unique Black history here in Grey County. People may not be aware of that, but it is quite unique. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, and I think Carolynn and Sylvia would be great to jump in if they have anything to add. But
by all means, Carolynn and Sylvia, please do.
Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I can just say that the Black community has been part of Grey County since the time of the earliest non-Indigenous settlers. It was really a place where some of those settlers were born in Canada, but others had just escaped slavery in the South, or had just been freed. So as long as there's been settlement happening in this area, there's been the Black community. So it's a long history.
Yes. I moved here in the early 80s, and I came from Northern Ontario, and I didn't really, I wasn't educated in that. We didn't learn about that in school. We just weren't educated about that. So when I moved here, I was pleasantly surprised to learn about our role, and the role we played in helping. And at Harrison Park, of course, they hold the Emancipation Festival every year. And hosting this show, I've learned a lot about the Emancipation Festival and how long standing it is. And, the original picnic, how it still is like the mainstay of the festival. And the picnic and games, like they are the core of the festival. Everything else, well, the music too, but the children's games and that picnic is really, that's something that hasn't changed. It's always been there. So, yeah, I mean, it's been there for, I forget how many years. It was 150, I forget, last year, but and of course, last year it had to be different.
Everything's different.
Everything's different now, but that must have broken their hearts, because it's just such a way for everyone, for all the families to get together, because some of these families, the generations of, it's just fascinating, they all come together in the summer and they see their aunties and uncles, and it's just lovely. But anyway, that's my story of the Emancipation Festival. I just love listening to it. So you're going to be doing things like that, and are you going to have any online guests or anything like that, guest speakers, or?
We're not. I mean, I think this is kind of our big virtual experience in partnership with you and Mark, and Carolynn and Sylvia, of course. But I'd always, I'd be up to doing anything else. Maybe I could ask Carolynn and Sylvia, what would usually happen at Sheffield Park Black History Museum for Black History Month? Would you guys usually be opened?
We're closed during the winter months. So what we would do are presentations at our local church here in Collingwood at Heritage Community Church, and it was a little more focused for community members or people to come in. But we have done, I guess we haven't done it this year, but presentations for Black History would bring in guest speakers. Last year we had Jean Augustine.
Oh, amazing.
And other years we've had Afua Cooper, and different ones would come in and do presentations. Or we would just do our own presentations, going out to different community groups and presenting artifacts or stories, or just relating who we are in the community. So, Carolynn?
I think that's about it as well. Sometimes at one time the schools would come and visit at our church. It was easier just to walk over to the church. And a few years ago, we borrowed some exhibits from other museums and set them up and participated. And we could promote other museums as well as our own. The Black History Month is very interesting for us. It's very significant. We have a chance to tell our stories, meet the community, and we're looking forward to getting together sometime in the next few years.
Carolynn and Sylvia, what is the history of Black History Month? Why is it in February? Is there significance to that?
Yes, I believe February was chosen for certain birthdays. One was Lincoln, I believe, and Frederick Douglass.
Okay.
And when Dr. Jean Augustine presented that in the House of Commons, it was a unanimous. So,
okay.
But, at one time, it started in the States as Negro Month or Negro Week, and then here in Canada, they just changed it into Black History Month. That's just a short version of it.
Okay.
The Black History Month. We've always had presentations here in Collingwood in particular, every year.
Right.
We celebrate being Black year round, but February is for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean. We should be celebrating it year round, and we should be educating our children about it from the time they're born. And I talked to a lovely young woman yesterday, Jill Lyman. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's the young lady that organized the Black Lives Matter march in Owen Sound last June.
Okay.
And we were talking about how we need to educate our children and speak about racism and that sort of thing in schools. And it should be, Black history should be part of the curriculum. And it shouldn't be just something that we talk about occasionally or when there's an issue, or it should be something that it's there all the time. And I agree with her. So tell us a little bit more about, honestly, I didn't know there was a Sheffield Park Black History Museum in Clarksburg, and I apologize for that. And as soon as this lockdown is over, I'm going to go, well, and when you open again, because you say it's closed in the winter, I'm going to go over and see it because it sounds fascinating. I love museums, and I love the concept of it being like a village type museum. So tell us a little bit about the history of it, if you want to start there.
Well, our Uncle Howard Sheffield had an idea when people were asking him about our family and how we got to Collingwood. He started putting little presentations on in our church basement, just pictures of our family. And my other Uncle Eddie, he was handcrafting models of the ships that were built here in the Collingwood Harbor. Mm-hmm. So as people were coming in and looking at the different pictures and the artifacts, they would say, oh, we have something that might go with that. Our grandmother had a teacup, or we had a blanket, or we had something else, and they would start donating. Well, our church basement got a little too small. So we had property just on the outskirts of Collingwood. We got 5 school portables. We bought them, put them around the property, and started filling up the portables with artifacts and pictures and donations, and they got full. Well, when the property was sold, it was my grandmother's property, and when she passed away, the estate was taken care of, and Carolyn and I were not beneficiaries. But no one else wanted to take on the museum, so we packed it up into, I think, 2 or 3 big storage containers, and we looked for some property, and the property in Clarksburg came up for sale. So we moved all our artifacts, and if you've ever packed up a museum, it's a big task.
Can't say I have.
And we had 4 big stone monuments, and I think they weigh about, one of them weighs 70 tons, and we took them with us too.
Oh
so
goodness.
We moved to Clarksburg in 2008, and we've set up 16 buildings now, and they're full.
Oh, wow.
As you go from building to building, you go around the Heritage Walk, and you can be outdoors enjoying nature and seeing farm implements and equipment. So it's a good full day adventure.
And on the monuments, we have inscribed the names of the Black families that lived here in the 1800s between Owen Sound and Collingwood and around the area. One's called Founder's Stone, our grandparents' name on there, and their dates, and the family, founding families. And we also recognize the Great Lakes, marine history. You wouldn't believe the numbers of people named on the stone, including, Jill, your area there, all the sailors, the husbands and wives and uncles, and we worked together and had their names placed on the stone. And our purpose was it would be preserved.
Oh.
Anyone could come and look for their history or their roots, and we can tie in with the Owen Sound Emancipation Day as the families come by. They'll know too that here in Collingwood, we always had hands reached out together with our Owen Sound relatives and friends.
Oh, that sounds just lovely. Oh.
Yeah, it's really a treasure for this area. I think other areas would be really jealous to have such an amazing place to go and learn about Black history. So yeah, I hope you guys are really busy this summer.
So when does it open again? Well, on a normally, if it was a normal time.
We open the Tuesday after the 24 weekend, 24 weekend in May.
All right. It sounds great. Do you ever have students come? Like, do the schools bring kids?
Well, we have a few students come, but it's not like an everyday school trip or anything. But we do have students come, or parents will come and then bring their kids back through the summer. but a lot of seniors seem to be the ones that are spending the time and looking through history and just, I don't know,
You would
maybe
think
they
it
have
would,
more time on their hands.
you would think it would be something that would be even if maybe not for younger kids, but for high school, or I would think
But we've had all
even for
the
the older, like the older students would appreciate it.
And I think a lot of the schools want more in-school teaching rather than bring the students out. So
You
and
get
actually our museum caters to all ages. We've had homeschools bring their little children in. We have a dollhouse, and we have a school set up so they can go in the school instead of in the old desks. And the desks relate to early times when schools were segregated. So they have a little bit there. We can tailor our talks or our walk-alongs with little ones. And the most interesting are the young people coming in, the high school students. They put input in, or we ask them to participate, share their thoughts and going through school and their perspective of history.
well, that's how I think people learn, is by seeing, touching, feeling, experiencing. But that's just my opinion. So Jill, you brought some pictures along to show us some exhibits that you have at your museum and archives. What did you bring along?
Sure. So I pulled some images from our Black History in Gray webpage on our website. Just sort of a selection of some of the larger images that I shared with Mark. So I guess he'll put in post, he'll put this through. But the first image that I pulled forward is an image of Henry Cosby, which I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He and his wife came here in the early 19th century from Virginia. They had a daughter in Toronto in 1844 and then moved to Owen Sound quite soon after that. So that's really early in the settlement period of this area. So he's a real important figure for sure.
You came to Owen Sound to, I guess, work on the ships. Is that why?
I think
the appeal, the work would have been the only work.
Yeah, or he would have. There were quite a few Black settlements in Gray County. There was. I've got some notes here. There was one in Neenah and Virginia. That's now the Ceylon area.
Oh.
And in the southern part of the county, in Artemisia Township and around Holland Center. And then in Owen Sound in the north. And the small village of Priceville in southern Gray County sprang to life really early in the settlement history as well. And it really flourished in its early days. And then there was sort of a change in the settlers' demographics, I guess you could say. And the Black community got kind of pushed out of Priceville. And then where else? There was a small village in Williamsford, in a spot of land along Negro Creek and Negro Lake that attracted pioneers in the 19th century. And I've got a little note here that by 1851, there were some 50 Black families living in Negro Creek district.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. They were there.
It's what was that?
Yes, they were there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing to think of, thriving Black communities, towns popping up, and to think of what they had been through in the last 30 years of their lives is just mind-blowing.
And it's interesting. I forget how many years ago, Sylvia and Carolyn, you might know more, a while ago, there was a group of people wanted to change the name of Negro Creek Road or Negro Creek because they found it was offensive. Do you remember that?
Oh, yes, we do. We helped to spearhead that with the community citizens there to save that landmark. That's all we had left.
Yeah,
And
they wanted to change it.
Yes, they wanted to change it to Mogi Road.
Yeah.
And but our people had lived there longer.
Yeah.
And but we explained the purpose why, and the Ontario Human Rights agreed that it was significant.
Yeah.
Otherwise, our history would all be erased.
Yeah. They thought that that was too offensive. And I thought, Lee, you know, like there's a reason for it to be called that, you know.
Yes, it was. 'Cause in those days too, Sharon, they called it Negro.
Yeah.
Negro Creek, and that's how we were known as, a label. That was our
the terminology.
the terminology then. Very
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah. I thought that was an interesting story.
too.
So when you brought that up, I thought, oh, I remember that. Yeah. You fought to keep it. You wanted it.
We did. We did. About 5,000 people signed petitions. We explained the purpose and the future of what it was, and then we could show that it was. And actually, there's a cemetery there. So we're hoping in the future that perhaps it can be another landmark there, or a cairn or something to mark that area there.
Yeah.
And I found in the 1800s, the Negro Lakes area were already registered and patented.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of history to do there, so we can work together with the Grey Root staff.
Sure.
And hoping to bring that
Yeah.
forward this year. I'm hoping so, Jill.
So many
Yes.
interesting stories, and it's all from the perspective of who it means, who has it's significant to. It's just so interesting. I love it.
And
Okay,
that's the problem with a lot of Black history is that, our settlements, if they're not marked or preserved, they're gone.
That's
We
right.
don't know they're there. So now
Yeah.
that we're finding little bits and pieces, we have to kind of sew it all back together
Yeah.
and figure out what really happened and where did the people go. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's like a big puzzle.
That's
Yes.
right. So what other pieces of history?
Well, I've also brought, I guess, jumping forward in time a little bit, a picture of the Morton family. They are James, Richard, Elizabeth, Lucy Harrison, and Hannah Morton, who were residents of an area of Owen Sound they called the Mud Town.
Yeah.
It was around the Paterson shipyards. What can I tell you? Some landowners built small houses in the vicinity of the shipyard for the families of these workmen and labeled it Polsonville. And then I think they tried to change the name again to something like Northcliffe. And then, but they, Mudtown just really stuck.
I live in Mudtown.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Mudtown.
Yes,
I
we do.
know. And they were one of many Black families that lived in that area. Names like Douglas, Bowie, Scott, Morton, Earls. These are long-standing families in the Owenstown area. There's even a little note here that just to the north of 16th Street, it used to be called Douglas Street, which was after one of those families. So,
Yes, it could be.
and then what else can I tell you? I've also brought a photo of another enterprising individual from that community, was Mr. William Henry Harrison. And he had a career as a quarryman in Owen Sound. And he arose to prominence sort of in an important era of civic construction in the city. And he also worked on shipping stone across the country.
Oh.
Including quarrying, plugging, and feathering of stone for the locks in Sault Ste. Marie, among all kinds of other local projects. And you'll see he looks like quite the dashing businessman.
Mhm.
And then I've also brought a photo of some local musicians. There's an image of an opera singer named Wilson Woodbeck from about the 1930s.
Yes.
And then an image as well of the Sea Island Merrymakers, who were an all-Black band. There was about, over a dozen members in the band. And they, the caption on the article that we have in our archives just said that they were like the most popular performers, and that anytime they performed, the place was just full. So that's really great to see. And then jumping ahead to the First World War, I brought a photo from our online exhibit about Grey County area men and women who enlisted in the First World War. And the online exhibit has a sort of civilian image and then a service image. And it shows you just how young some of them were. And they were really babies. But we've brought a photo today of Mr. James Henry Hall. And his family was one of the first pioneer families in Grey County. James moved to Northern Ontario to work in the forests as a sawyer and laborer. He enlisted as in the local regiment here, and then transferred to the 124th Battalion. And that battalion was trained as infantry, but then they went overseas and were in a pioneer division, which means they did a lot of the construction and setting up the roadways and all of the building that needed to go to, I don't know, I guess, create the battlefront, really. It's very dangerous work. What was I going to say?
There was quite a contingent or representation of the Black community in both World Wars.
Yeah, and he actually, with his 3 sons, enlisted in the Second World War after he survived the First World War. So really a hero that gave a lot to our country.
Jill, so if people want to see these photos, they can go online?
Yeah, they can just go to greyroots.com. And we'll, right on our front page, you can see we'll have Black History Month resources and information, and you can learn a little bit more there.
That's great because when I'm done, I'm going to go on because I can't really see these. And so back to you, Carolyn and Sylvia again. So if people want to access your museum, of course, you're closed till after May, you said.
That's right.
Well, and we don't really know what will happen this year, but there is a website. And people can go on and check out Sheffield Park Black History Museum. You have a Facebook page?
Yes, we do. And we're posting every day for the month of February.
Okay. And you have Instagram and all that too?
Well, we're not technically inclined for Instagram yet. We were told yesterday Facebook is for old people. So that's
But you do have a website and a Facebook page. So that's good enough. Well, thank you both, or all 3 of you, for joining me. And I'm really happy that we were able to discuss all of our rich history and Black history here in Grey and Simcoe County. And for our viewers, join us again here on Community Close-Up. And remember that you all have to keep safe at home, wash your hands, wear a mask, socially distance, and you can check up on all of this Black history online, so you don't have to go out. And join us again here on Community Close-Up on Rogers TV. Join us again. I'm Sharen Skelly. Bye for now.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Don't forget to tune in to Grey County Life at Home next week.
We're going to learn more about a new group called Elect Her Now.
Anthony will never marry.
If it comes to that, I'll freeze my eggs.
You should freeze your whole body if you're waiting for that.